The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Right Side. It's Friday. Happy Friday to all of you. Today on the program, going to dive into the John Bolton indictment for a while because it's not just justice, it's legal reason. It's not revenge. It's accountability. Trump's pivotal meeting also today with Zelensky from the Ukraine, very important. The Department of Justice restoring our republic. And then in hour two, I want to talk about American exceptionalism, how the Republicans are empowering us through faith and work while the Democrats are binding us up with shutdowns and entitlements. The Right Side with Doug Billings, ladies and gentlemen. It's now upon you. Are you ready? Let's go.
Hey everybody, my name is General Mike Flynn, and I'm here to do a big shout out for my great friend and one of the best in the business, Mr. Doug Billings. Right Side with Doug Billings, Right Side with Doug Billings. Doug is the future of the airwaves when it comes to independent broadcasters and podcasters. He is the new Rush Limbaugh. He's exactly what America needs right now, looking for honesty, looking for wisdom, looking for truth, looking for patriotism. Listen to Doug Billings at Right Side with Doug Billings. God bless you and God bless America, and thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are winning. We're winning, winning, winning. Welcome to The Right Side with Doug Billings. Are you ready?
We are not liberal snowflakes who melt away in the face of tragedy, adversity, and challenge. We are a covenant nation under God, and his divine providence is not dead and it's not gone. It is living within each and every one of you. And you will bring it to life in such a way that the world has never seen before. We never back down. We never give up. We march forward.
Happy Friday, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are, 2 hours of conservative excellence on The Right Side with Doug Billings. Your daily bastion right here of truth, bold conservative values, and deconstructing the radical liberal myths that have been flown about for decades. If you have just joined us, if you've just stumbled upon this program, welcome to the Real Talk Radio Network. Make sure you get on your app store for iPhone or Android and look up the Real Talk Radio Network. Look for the American Eagle logo, and you can listen to us anywhere in the world. Tell your friends, tell your families, share the programs of the hosts, all of them, who are on this network. This is how we get the truth out there. This is how we win, ladies and gentlemen. And if you are a business owner or if you know business owners, steer them this way for advertising so that we can help each other. We have each other's backs. We are in this together, as I always say. And this is how, again, in all seriousness, is how we reclaim the republic. So follow through with that. A call to action right away on this Friday. The news of the day, no hype. This is not about hype. This is about truth, honesty, and analysis that is not going to be found in the mainstream. It's not going to be found on your legacy news outlets. I want to give some clarity without rants, without hype, just, again, analysis and truth, a little bit of humor here and there. But especially some wisdom mixed in there. And motivation, too. I guess I should say that. Motivation, because if nothing else, we have to remain motivated to get involved and save the republic. So as we look at what's happening, and if we look at the left lunacy that has been disposed and dispensed to us, today's stories are a storm of accountability. Accountability. I didn't say retribution. I didn't say revenge. It's accountability. There's also international impact with regards to all of these as well. I'll break it all down. But to start off, the indictment of John Bolton. Now, I'm not going to spend 2 hours talking about John Bolton, but the former Trump advisor surrendering this morning on charges that he mishandled classified information. Okay, sending over 1,000 pages of top secret diary entries via personal emails and messages, and it's a blatant breach of the Espionage Act. Now, it's not just legal drama. It's a lesson in hubris here, folks. And the perspectives that I'm about to give you, you're certainly not going to hear on CNN or Fox or the mainstream, outlets. They're just too worried. CNN is too worried about how they get back on top of the Food Network because the Food Network has just now surpassed them in the ratings. The Food Network. So CNN is trying to decide whether or not they spin political vendetta as the John Bolton story, because they're trying to convince everybody out there, MSNBC the same way, trying to convince us that this is somehow a political vendetta. Well, they've gathered together. They've had their confabs, their meetings, their Zoom calls and Skype calls, and this is the talking points. It's a vendetta. It's political revenge. You're going to hear it again and again and again. So there are legal distinctions that need to be pointed out, and ego that is involved in this, especially with regards to John Bolton. His ego is the reason ultimately he's in this mess. I'm telling you that. And then we have the hypocrisy that comes to us from the left side of the aisle. Here's I want you to think about that. I think this is fairly unique, that Bolton's ego, that he has this unquenchable thirst for the spotlight. He pitched his own participation into the first Trump term. And it didn't take long for Trump to see what Bolton was all about. Trump has there's no love lost. Trump is not a fan of John Bolton's. But Bolton has this thirst for the spotlight, and you can see it when he's on his book tours and these leaks. If you read, I can't wait. You poured through these emails that I've read this morning. These are the reasons it's led him straight into this situation, sharing sensitive intel like it was casual chit-chat with his publisher and other people, self-inflicted wounds that the media is only going to gloss over, if they mention them at all. And if we contrast that with President Trump's case and what he and his family had to go through, Trump faced 38 counts of unauthorized retention. Remember the unauthorized retention of documents at Mar-a-Lago. Never mind that as a president, Trump or anyone who's president can declassify any document that he wants whenever he wants. And he doesn't have to necessarily go through a process. He can just simply deem those documents declassified. The Constitution and the framers gave a broad latitude to a president, any president, to do that, but only to the president, certainly not to the vice president and not to someone like Bolton. But Bolton has 8 counts here, okay? Not 38 like Trump had to face, 38 nonsensical charges. Bolton has 8 counts that involve active transmission of top secret material. So that's a willful dissemination, folks, and it's arguably more egregious than anything we've seen here lately. But so liberals still, because they've had their meetings and they've been given their script, persecution. That's what this is. It's persecution. Nothing else but that. Meanwhile, they cheer on Trump's legal woes. You remember, right? Obviously. It is not Trump's Department of Justice hunting down his enemies here. It is justice catching a loose cannon, Bolton, who thought that the rules didn't apply. So Bolton has denied, of course, is going to deny any wrongdoing, but he claimed political motivation, which is interesting. The facts show that his actions mirror, there's no witch hunt, unlike what the left is going to be claiming very loudly over this weekend. Just watch. Now, this whole thing, you've got Bolton, you've got Comey. This is opening the door to other possible indictments. One name comes specifically in my mind, and as I look at this, up to the top quickly and very clearly. And that is, and you're going to love this, all of you are going to love it because you've been hoping, Adam Schiff. Is he going to face indictment for lying on in the sacred halls of Congress about the Russia hoax? I mean, there's renewing calls for censorship are mounting because he misled Congress on that Trump Russia collusion BS. There are whistleblowers claiming that he leaked classified information in 2017 to smear Trump. We know this. We conservatives who are filled with, because you watch and listen to the right side, intellectual maturity. We understand this. The whistleblower claiming that Schiff leaked classified information in 2017 to smear Trump. Plus, there's also an ongoing criminal probe into Shifty Schiff and his mortgage fraud potentiality there in the early 2000s. So all of this kind of bubbling up, and we're going to get into it, talk about it the first hour. The second hour, as I mentioned, American exceptionalism, nothing to be ashamed of. Stay with me, ladies and gentlemen. Come right back. I'll be right here. Thanks. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Well, I've got a deal for you, folks. You want to cut the cable cord once and for all? You spending what, 120, 150 or more a month on cable? What if I told you I can get you every cable channel out there, every sports team that you want to follow, the NFL channel, the Major League Baseball channels, all of them, every network channel, every cable channel for $59.99 a month with Q Broadcast, not the kook Q. I'm talking about CUE. CUE, Q Broadcast. Go to therightside.myqbroadcast.com. therightside.myqbroadcast.com and get signed up today. We're in this together, folks. Believe it. For the Republic. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings. The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. The Right Side, Doug Billings. Thank you for joining us. Keeping up with what's going on with these indictments. And I know that many of you out there are waiting, sometimes patiently, sometimes not so patiently, for more of these indictments and so forth. And I have always said justice in America is intended to move slowly, and that tests our patience. We need to be patient. Some of you hungry, for example, to see President Obama perhaps see some justice come his way. Maybe Mike Pence. We may, but I'm here to take a deep breath with those two. You're not going to see those guys get indicted before somebody like Schiff. But I understand. I understand the desire, believe me. And they're in the mix, certainly Obama and Pence. I'll be first to admit it if I'm wrong, but I think that you've got other players that are more likely to see something happen. We'll see. As Trump says, we'll see what happens. But we're all on the same team over here. I like the way that you're thinking. I like the fact that we're seeing movement. And also, as an aside, and I was just looking up on a chat conversation we had last night with the Real Talk radio network team, reminding you also that United States prosecutors have charged Smartmatic. You remember them, right? Smartmatic is the company that makes the electronic voting machines. So they're charging them with alleged money laundering tied to bribes that were paid to election officials in the Philippines. Now, isn't that interesting? And all I could say, I replied last night, only two words came to mind when I read that text. Mike Lindell. Now, say what you want about Mike Lindell, but he has done an awful lot of investigation into this particular topic. And this was not something I was going to talk about. I was just reminded by this through one of the social media posts that I saw from our audience. So that's all in the works. So things are beginning to churn here, and we will see. But this is different. We are treating this different than how they treated us. Conservatives are demanding accountability. And with Trump's Department of Justice ramping up, it's possible, because Schiff's claim of having direct evidence, remember? And he was he was a congressman at the time in the sacred halls of our Congress. I've got direct evidence that links President Trump, to Russia collusion. Well, those were all debunked by Robert Durham. And that whole shenanigan, that whole nonsensical hoax cost the United States taxpayers $32 million in hoax investigations. So if Bolton's ego has got him indicted, Schiff's lies could get him indicted next. It could be. I'm not saying that I have a crystal ball. I'm saying as I look at what they do and the players involved, they're taking out the low-hanging fruit first. Clearly, yes, we would all like to see if it's proven that they're implicated, and if if Obama, who I believe with Susan Rice was really calling the shots during Administrator Biden's time in office. Susan Rice had an office in the West Wing. And we all remember Obama in that 60, I think it was 60 Minutes, or maybe it was on ABC, in an interview that he gave. I'd rather quite fancy myself having a third term and being able to have a microphone and whisper into the ear of the next president. And lo and behold, Biden gets inserted into office, and Obama has his puppet, whereby Obama could really get his third term. And I think, you know what, the auto pin represents Obama and Susan Rice calling the shots with the Biden administration. Hello, Lynn McCabe from Alaska. One of my friends, Kim Green McDonald, lives up in Alaska. One of my favorite states. I've been there once a couple of years ago. Went salmon fishing during the running of the Reds in Cooper's Landing on the Russian River. Very beautiful place. So glad to have you from Alaska. Thanks for joining us. But folks, Obama got his third term, whispering into the ear of Biden, right? Figuratively, but Susan Rice calling the shots. And it would be glorious if we see him find some justice land in his lap. And it would be great if it's determined that Vice President Pence was involved in any of this. So we'll see. I just think Adam Schiff is a more likely target. I have no evidence myself, but as I look at the state of play, it certainly would make sense. And I remain hopeful because Adam Schiff is one of the most dastardly SOBs I've ever seen in the elected class. One of the worst, certainly in the top 5. And remember, if you watched President Trump's presser that he had a couple this week, but one where he had Pam Bondi and Kash Patel. Kash Patel gave a presentation on the work that the FBI has done in the 7 months since Trump has been in office. And Trump went ballistic on these guys on the media because of what all of this represents. The fake witch hunt, the fake Russia hoax. They persecuted Trump and his family. They tried to put Eric Trump in jail for life for a hoax, for made up charges. And Trump went off on them. And, if anything, he said, we've been too easy on you guys. If it were just me, it would have been a lot harder. So he's showing restraint and saying, you're lucky that we're going this soft as we are when you get into the conversation about, are you persecuting your political enemies? Are you kidding? And hello, Nathan from Uganda. There it is, ladies and gentlemen, a truly international audience. The Right Side with Doug Billings on the Real Talk Radio Network from around the world, because you've got the app, Nathan. You're listening, and the Real Talk Radio app brings us together from no matter where we are on the planet. Good to have you. Thank you for chiming in over there. Happens to be watching on Facebook. I saw your chat. So Schiff trying to lock up Eric Trump. Imagine that. This is another reason why I want Schiff to have some accountability. And I am not one that seeks vengeance. I am not. I want justice. I do not want retribution. A lot of influencers call for retribution, revenge. Well, that's not a conservative value. It really isn't. We want justice. We don't take revenge. We don't take retribution. We seek justice. We don't return tyranny with more tyranny. In other words, we don't prosecute people for political sake. We prosecute people for justice sake. There's a big difference there, and words matter. So Schiff is a perfect example of what he said in all of this nonsense and how the weaponization of justice was cast upon us by the radical left. They went after Trump's family on made-up nonsense. So I would be angry too. It's not revenge. It's not retribution. This is, aside from justice, maybe look at it like this. It's restoration. We are restoring the justice of the American Republic. Bolton's arrogance, again, it only cost him, it not only cost him freedom, but it has eroded conservative trust. His anti-Trump rants in the media, the interviews that he's given continually, it fueled a division, and ultimately it was kind of a self-sabotage. And liberals exploit that kind of thing to fracture us on the right side, to cause division. Oh, look, we've got a former Trump advisor, Nick Bolton. And yeah, well, they do, and they say, look, we've got one of his, and he's saying bad things about the orange man. Oh boy, let's use that. And they try to sow division. But we're smarter. We understand. There are bad apples everywhere, and we uncover them and we deal with them. But we do it in a conservative way. All right, bottom of the hour. Time for you to take a trip into the land of capitalism, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be here when you get back. Stay with me. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
I want to tell you about the good people over at EMP Shield, electromagnetic pulse. Electromagnetic pulse, ladies and gentlemen. It can fry your home electrical system or your vehicle's electrical system. But if you attach one of these, now this is for your breaker box at home. There's a smaller version that goes on your battery of your car, your vehicle, that will prevent it from being fried in the event of an electromagnetic pulse. Because as you know, thanks to Administrator Biden, many people coming across the border now who don't exactly have the best of intentions. Protect yourself. EMPshield.com. Get huge discounts over there if you use the promo code Doug.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
I want to tell you about the good people over at EMP Shield, electromagnetic pulse. Electromagnetic pulse, ladies and gentlemen. It can fry your home electrical system or your vehicle's electrical system. But if you attach one of these, now this is for your breaker box at home. There's a smaller version that goes on your battery of your car, your vehicle, that will prevent it from being fried in the event of an electromagnetic pulse. Because as you know, thanks to Administrator Biden, many people coming across the border now who don't exactly have the best of intentions. Protect yourself. EMPshield.com. Get huge discounts over there if you use the promo code Doug.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Right Side with Doug Billings, where truth, logic, liberty, intellectual maturity flowing down like manna from heaven. Ladies and gentlemen, 62% of Americans want to see an ethics committee take a look at Adam Schiff. He's got mortgage fraud issues that are facing him. We got to see if those things stick. FBI sources saying that the odds of him, and this is what I was reading this morning that has got me on this topic. The FBI sources that I read and heard are saying that the chances of Adam Schiff getting indicted have risen 40%. Now, I don't know what that means because I've got to look up and see where were they prior to that? Was he at a 10% chance? Was he at a 20%? Because if they've gone up by 40, that's pretty significant. We'll see. Again, as Trump says, we'll see what happens. But as I look at this, and if I provide you what my analysis is of the state of play and the tea leaves here that are involved, it's not looking good for Shifty Schiff. So we'll see what happens, and we'll make comment about it when it happens. But Bolton's indictment, charged under the Espionage Act, very exciting, retaining and sharing, most importantly, classified information, including his diary entries that he sent to publishers and others, which was just reckless, that endangered not only our security, but it endangered the sources that are contained within those documents. So that's the difference, you see, from the case of Trump versus Schiff. Trump had secured documents in his residence, okay, and it all involves the declassification process. Bolton's was pure sloppiness, okay? There was transmitting top secret details. There's no excuse for that, nor does he have the right to do it. Now, the liberal will claim that Trump's Department of Justice is persecuting its enemies here, but Bolton's own statements admit that the material was sensitive. He said this in his emails, in his diaries, and to his publisher and other people. And this is accountability that we're seeking here. It's not a vendetta. And Trump spotlighted Bolton, and evidence drove these charges, unlike the left with their selective prosecution based on nothing but a hoax and myth. and nonsense. So Bolton's ego has sealed his fate here, at least for the time being. His book was called, or is called, The Room Where It Happened. And he was so proud of the fact that he was in the inner circle there for a while, where he bragged about having inside knowledge, inviting the kind of scrutiny that has now uncovered these breaches. You don't just go out there and brag about being in the room, in the inner circle, and having access without somebody going, wait a minute, what is he saying? Let me take a look at this. And then they begin to dig into it. Trump is the president of the United States. He can declassify anything that he wants to. And he really doesn't have to go through a huge process in order to do it. He can just deem documents declassified, and poof, there it is. Nobody else can do that other than a president. Vice President Biden couldn't do it because he wasn't president, obviously. And Bolton obviously can't do it. There's huge differences here. We see it. And I know that I sound sometimes like I'm speaking to people who don't know what's going on. You people know what's going on. Whistleblowers now coming up. You talk about Schiff. He's got whistleblowers coming up, surfacing all of a sudden. The Russia hoax, claiming that he had direct evidence of collusion between Russia and President Trump. All of it debunked by all of these investigations, Mueller and so forth. And so because of that, there certainly is justification that an investigation is warranted and perhaps an indictment. He's also got, as I mentioned, those mortgage fraud issues. There's a lot of people commit mortgage fraud, and it on both sides. So that's not one I really get lit up. I mean, Letitia James in New York, that's what she's facing, and I hope that she has accountability. I'm more hungry for the fact that she campaigned on the promise of taking down a president. That to me, now she's going to face. I think that she's going to be found guilty, but I'm warning you that there's all sorts of people out there that do what she did on both sides. And so if that might unleash a tidal wave or a tsunami of a back and forth, but we'll see. But I digress. Trump's presser, the White House presser the other day that I mentioned, where they tried to, he was talking about his anger about the fake hoaxes because they tried to entrap and jail Eric. Eric, of course, runs the Trump organization. He's the one in charge of the Trump company. He doesn't really seek the spotlight like Don Jr. does, but they went after Eric, and probably, other than the president, the most indicted man in the history of this country. And you know what? It's not cheap. You got to have a lawyer there. It takes time. On average, when the Trumps sit down for an indictment and they have to go give a testimony, they have, it costs $40,000 on average for each time they go do that. Now, these people are wealthy, but they're not wealthy with an infinite amount of money. And so, again, as I mentioned this yesterday, part of their goal, the left, is to not only prosecute and embarrass, but to financially break these people as well. It's always been there. So Bolton's credibility is tanking. It never really was very good anyway. And the geopolitical leverage now that's out there with these leaks, when you read what he leaked, it weakens the U.S. negotiating power abroad, leaking information about Ukraine, for example. Leaking information about the relationship that Trump has with Russia and China and the talks that they were going to have. This is all terrible. And it could signal to us that the Department of Justice finally under Trump is prioritizing national security over somebody's ego. And that is, folks, that's as it should be. And that's what the liberals are afraid of, because Americans see through the stuff that Adam Schiff puts out. We see through their radical liberal nonsense. We can see that they want to pursue purposeful chaos in this country, for example, right? We can see it. We see it in a number of ways. One, the border. That's the easiest example of how they perpetrate and continually try to cause chaos. When they were in control, open up the borders, chaos. And then one of the most direct results of that were violent criminals coming into this country. And then you couple that with the fact that the radical liberal attorneys general don't prosecute with extreme prejudice violent criminals. They let them back out on the streets if they're sentenced at all, and no bail, no bond. Go ahead, get back. I'll see you in court next month, whatever. And then they're out on the streets. Well, this is purposeful chaos. This is what I'm talking about. And we see through it. So when you look at what Bolton put out there, it could impact what we're doing in Ukraine. Putin, for example, the negotiations with Zelensky and so forth, if it goes right, with Zelensky today, Trump's meeting with Zelensky today, and it could pave the way for a really good set of talks with Putin. Now, Putin's got to come to the table, and he's got to be reasonable. We can't let him just expand the Russian kingdom and keep the land that he's grabbed. But Trump is a deal maker. We'll see what happens. This is the first step. They are going to meet in Hungary. That's already been announced. So, when this kind of thing happens, when justice is carried out, when people who have put leaks out there are held accountable, what that does, at least according to the Brookings Institute, they say that bolsters the odds of a successful negotiation between Putin, Zelensky, and Trump by about 50%. So as long as they know that they're going to get the kooks under control, it boosts Trump's credibility at the table. That's what I'm saying. And we can talk about that some more. I don't want to spend all day on this, but I do want to tie it in, especially when we get close to the second hour today, with American exceptionalism, which is what the radical liberals really want to squelch with all of this. Remember, President Obama, the most anti-American sentiment that was ever uttered as part of a campaign pledge was that America needed to be fundamentally transformed. Well, that is a problem, and that's what they're trying to do. And you see this now, and with hindsight, you can look and say, yeah, they really were trying to fundamentally transform America. Look what they did. The border, they don't prosecute criminals. They want this trans agenda, the radical nonsense of trans. Let's make a culture of death where we can kill babies. All of this stuff. It's transforming away from the intent of the founders. I'm going to talk a lot about that in the second hour because we need good news and hope going into the weekend, and there's a lot of it out there. But Trump is meeting with Zelensky at the White House. They're talking about the war, how to get it under control, Tomahawk missiles on the table. Of course, Putin's aware of all this. And it's something, again, much like what the tariffs were. Trump isn't, by the way, let me just also say this, we're not giving Zelensky anything. Ukraine is going to pay for whatever aid, whether it's military or otherwise, that we offer, and American interests will be served. And that's America First policy. And it's not ego. It's not in your face. It's not being braggadocious. It's saying it's business. And we can't just foot the bill for everything. And I want to make sure that's clear. But these Tomahawk missiles will bring Putin to the table. They already have. They've already agreed to a meeting. Now it remains to be seen how genuine Putin will be. But let's see. Let's see what happens. But it's high stakes strategy. It's in effect. I think Zelensky and Trump have had there's been a healing, if you will, between the two of them. They have a decent relationship. Now, what Trump is quick to point out is that Zelensky and Putin absolutely do not have a good relationship at all. In fact, it's terrible. But when Trump remains firm about negotiations and what he intends to do, you begin to see things like what happened in the Middle East. Compelling concessions and things that the left never did. The left would simply appease the terrorists. We've got to have a ceasefire. Let's everybody just have a ceasefire and calm down. And that's really about it. They didn't get to any. They didn't discuss that in a position of strength. But Trump did. And remember, Biden provided $175 billion during his administration to the Middle East. A lot of that was the Afghan debacle and the cash, the $180 billion of cash and the tier one American military equipment that was left behind. But Trump has suspended all of the intelligence, all of the military aid for a week or so with regards to Zelensky and Ukraine so that they can begin to leverage that with these ceasefire talks. And that's also what happened in the Middle East. So there are high stakes. I mean, this is the bloodiest war in Europe since World War II. And so if Putin doesn't show good faith, those Tomahawk missiles could shift that battlefield, the balance over there. They will shift it, no doubt about it. But Trump wants border pacts. He wants American, the American ingenuity to be paid for. He wants everything to be paid for. Not if there are no more freebies, and that saves the United States billions of dollars. So Zelensky's going to meet, and they will talk, and we'll hear what they say. But that's it. And this is all part of the new America, that President Trump has now given us and blessed us with. It's a return to a degree. We have a lot of work to do. It's a return to a degree what the intent of the founding fathers was: strength, American dominance, leading the world. And we were there for many, many decades. The radical left agenda doesn't permit that. Anyway, more of that. We'll wrap up this hour, and we'll get energized about the hope that exists out there and the pack of blessings that still exists for us in America. I'll be right back. Stay with me. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the set of my show, The Right Side. This is where it all happens. This is where I dispense to you intellectual maturity, and you become members of the most intellectually mature audience in all of Radioland. Well, I've got a deal for you, folks. You want to cut the cable cord once and for all? You spending what, 120, 150 or more a month on cable? What if I told you I can get you every cable channel out there, every sports team that you want to follow, the NFL channel, the Major League Baseball channels, all of them, every network channel, every cable channel for $59.99 a month with Q Broadcast, not the kook Q. I'm talking about CUE. CUE, Q Broadcast. Go to therightside.myqbroadcast.com. therightside.myqbroadcast.com and get signed up today. We're in this together, folks. Believe it. For the Republic. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Let me tie up the first hour here, put a bow on it for you. I get a kick out of the Real Talk Network app. I hope you all go out and get it. I look at this thing over the break. John Wick, thank you very much for always being out there and for all of your support. And I want to address one of the comments you made over there. Ladies and gentlemen, so during the shutdown, and I've talked about that, what I'm about to say, I've mentioned this week. So again, just very quickly, people like John are, and rightly so, concerned about what they see in government. This unelected bureaucratic bloat that we have that really does run, lead, and manage many of the things in our government, and that has direct impact and effect on our lives. The things that these bureaucrats decide, which policy to implement, how tough are we going to be on the rules and regulations in this area or that, and what are we? So yes, it's a nightmare. It's bloated. But the good news is that in the history of history, no one has slashed more in the last few weeks than President Trump has from the bureaucracy. That's why, if you're reading the papers or seeing the news on the internet, that's why the lower courts have now stopped they've placed another injunction on President Trump and his firing of these federal employees. So this is going to go to a higher court, maybe even to the Supreme Court. Trump will win. President Trump is the chief executive officer of the United States government. For those of you with any business acumen out there at all, we all know that the CEO can pretty much fire and hire whoever he or she wants. And that's what Trump is doing. He'll win. He'll prevail. It's just another roadblock. So the bloat of government, how did John Wick put it? The unelected, illegal administrative government. And he's exactly right. All of that is being dealt with. President Trump, in fact, during this shutdown, Trump has more agility to do that, to slash these people and get them out of there, than he would when the government is open. So it's part, and that's the truth. He is reducing it. And so we have to take a deep breath, look around, give Trump and his team time. I know we all, including me, and maybe even especially me, we lack patience. I do. I want things to happen faster, but I also understand that they can't. And so we ask for the wisdom to see that things really are happening. And whether or not you like Pam Bondi or not, I know this. I know Kash Patel personally. Not only have I had conversations with him face to face, just throughout the country at different events. He's been on the show several times. I trust Kash Patel. I trust Dan Bongino. Okay, until they show me reason not to, I trust them, and I know that they are incapable of putting forth false flag information and driving us in a direction that has anything other than the truth in mind. So again, we'll see what happens. Whether or not I don't have a strong opinion one way or another yet on Pam Bondi. It's 7 months in. We will see. But some good things are happening, and I choose to default to the positive. We'll still work for what we want, but I at least want to default to the good things that I'm seeing. So all of this to say Zelensky, Trump, Bolton, maybe Schiff now involved in all of this in a forthcoming indictment. I'm not predicting that. I'm just saying, as I see it, it seems like it might be a real possibility. But Trump's approach with all of that is a businessman's approach. And we need that. We've needed this for so long. One of the things I say, the founding fathers' intent for leaders in this country was not that they make a career out of it. They intended to do 1 or 2 terms and get the heck out of there. And this is why we've got Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer. The nursing home is calling. We got to get them out of there. Term limits. History echoes all of this. And another thing that history echoes is Ronald Reagan's dealing in the time during the Cold War. Trump is echoing that and channeling Reagan right now with Zelensky and with Putin. Pressure without engaging in all of these proxy wars that their liberals and some Republicans, if we're honest, Bush, for example, have tried to get us involved in. So pressure without war. Ethical contrasts are there too. Aid that we give to Ukraine or to anyone, it has got to serve American interests, not Ukraine's endless desire for this war or any other country's desire for war. Zelensky's plea for these armies, tactical missile systems and so forth that involve the Tomahawks and others. Now that could export United States technology to the region. And Trump is prudent about this, not just a free handout of Tomahawks, not just a blank check. And the radical left makes fun of and mocks that prudence. We need prudence. We have to, and we have to realize that what prudence does really ultimately is it extends our enduring alliances with these countries. It fortifies our, and when this thing is over, there is going to be a post-war reconstruction effort in the Ukraine and the parts of Russia that have been damaged. So saving $500 billion in aid over a decade is what Trump is after. And he does that by charging a price for the aid that we provide. Imagine that, instead of just giving away equipment and giving away money. I mean, it's so common sense. We will help, but it's not a freebie. This is not a soup kitchen. If Anthony Blinken were in charge, oh my God, remember Tony Blinken? We'd have poetry readings instead of actual negotiations. It's ridiculous. All right, hour number 1, we're putting it in the can, ladies and gentlemen. It's a done deal. Coming up, hour 2. Stay with me. We'll dispense more intellectual maturity, and I'm going to talk about American exceptionalism. I'll be back. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
I want to tell you about the good people over at EMP Shield, electromagnetic pulse. Electromagnetic pulse, ladies and gentlemen. It can fry your home electrical system or your vehicle's electrical system. But if you attach one of these, now this is for your breaker box at home. There's a smaller version that goes on your battery of your car, your vehicle, that will prevent it from being fried in the event of an electromagnetic pulse. Because as you know, thanks to Administrator Biden, many people coming across the border now who don't exactly have the best of intentions. Protect yourself. EMPshield.com. Get huge discounts over there if you use the promo code Doug.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Hour number 2, ladies and gentlemen, of intellectual maturity, The Right Side with Doug Billings upon you. And thanks. Thanks for heading into the weekend with me. Thanks for spreading the good news of the program. From Uganda to Alaska today, ladies and gentlemen. We've got people listening throughout the world on the app. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Doug Billings, The Right Side here with you. Let me, again, watching and looking at the social media feed with regards to the show, Mike Pence, there's still a lot of people out there that are really angry at Mike Pence, and rightly so, because we all were hurt when he failed to call a timeout, right? When they were certifying the election, when Trump was ripped off, when Biden and when Biden was handed the presidency. So I understand that, and I don't mean to make that I don't make light of that. What he could have done, and there's precedent for this in our country. It's happened before. I talk about it. Here's a shameless plug. In my book, Remaking the American Political System, I talk about this with my friend Mike Beeler, who helped me write the book. Pence could have called a timeout and said, well, there's a lot of, we have some complaints, a lot of problems with these voting machines. There's some speculation that they might not be accurate. Let's take a 2-week timeout and investigate. Pence could have done that. And there's precedent for that. Remaking the American Political System, Amazon.com. Get it and read about it. But let me say this about that. The fact that we're pissed off, the fact that we're angry at Vice President Pence because he didn't call that, I call it a timeout. That's not something that he can be prosecuted for. It's not a crime for a vice president to not call a timeout. Now, we know what we saw. We know what the evidence bore out. And so if he didn't, and we're frustrated, we have to have an investigation and we need to get to the truth. But the mere fact that he didn't pause to investigate, and he could have, is not something that we can hang our hats on. Now, there are other things, but not that one. And so anyway, back, with what Trump is doing, to just tie up the first hour, Ukraine, Zelensky, Putin. Okay, NATO is upping their donations. It's not donations, upping their fees by upwards of 8 to 10% because of Trump's involvement. 55% of people approve the way that President Trump is handling this. His foreign policy is ranking among the highest of any president. His domestic policies with crime and immigration, sky high. So what this is Trump's projection of American exceptionalism. And it's not him being braggadocious. It's not him with a gigantic ego, although, yes, Trump has to have an ego given what his job is. But it's not like he's rubbing it in the face of the sake of just rubbing it in their face. He's saying, look, we're going to protect the world. We're going to help you. We're going to end this war. We're going to get your people back. We're going to save lives. And in order to do that, he has to project strength. So that's what that is about. And we see it being reflected in what we experience. Even if we don't articulate it as such, what we're seeing is American exceptionalism. And it roots back, obviously, to the Founding Fathers, who have been under subtle and covert attack by the radical liberal movement in this country for multiple decades. That whole, the shining city on a hill syndrome, rooted in the divine providence of God, the intent of the Founding Fathers. It's unique to us. This is God's gift reclaimed, is what we're seeing, where Republicans are reviving faith, the flame of religion, while Democrats are trying to douse it with secularism. And they've been at that for a long time. And to a great degree, many Americans have let themselves be convinced that in America, church and religion are supposed to be completely separate from the fabric of our society and our culture. It's because of the famous Thomas Jefferson quote to the Danbury Baptist Association. You all have heard this a million times, where he talks about a separation of church and state. It's continually taken out of context by the radical left. So his phrase was actually, quote, we have to build this wall of separation between church and state. And he was responding to the Baptist concerns about religious liberty. And he was assuring them that the First Amendment protected their rights to practice their faith without government interference. That's what Jefferson was trying to say. Not that there should be no faith and no religion in our society or in our government. This is what he wrote, quoting him directly. Believing that religion is a matter which lies solely between man and his God, I contemplate with sovereign reverence that act of the whole American people, which declared that their legislature should, quote, make no laws respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, end quote, thus building up a wall of separation between church and state. That's Thomas Jefferson's entire quote about this topic. The quote is continually taken out of context in modern debates that argue for a strict removal. We've got to take everything out. Everything that pertains to religion or faith has got to be removed from public life. We've got to ban prayer. You can't post the 10 Commandments, no religious symbols at all, precisely because of that quote. That's what people go after because of that quote, and they're wrong. Jefferson isn't saying that. Jefferson is, in fact, quite the opposite. His intent was dramatically the opposite of that. He wanted to prevent the state from establishing or interfering with religion, not squelching it. He wanted religion to flourish in this country. That's why he wanted to protect the religious freedom of everybody. And he wanted to protect the religious freedom that we all enjoy from government overreach, which is precisely what's happening right now in this country. I mean, Jefferson's views on this all stemmed from Virginia's religious liberty struggles, where Jefferson actually got involved and helped to disestablish the Anglican Church to ensure that no denomination was favored one over another. So the critics, like liberal activists and so forth, members of the celebrity class, certainly the elected class, even our courts, who have been corrupt and drifted so far away from the intent of the Founding Fathers, have been liberalized so much, liberalized away from the intent of the Founding Fathers as it pertains to the exceptionalism that has always been America. Instead, they want to build barriers against religious expression in public places, ignoring that Jefferson himself proclaimed national days of prayer when he was president. And he was in favor of supporting missionary work with federal money. Much more to talk about as we head into the weekend today. I'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. You can hear the tunes on a way to a break. Stay with me, though. I'll be back. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Well, I've got a deal for you, folks. You want to cut the cable cord once and for all? You spending what, $120, $150 or more a month on cable? What if I told you I can get you every cable channel out there, every sports team that you want to follow, the NFL channel, the Major League Baseball channels, all of them, every network channel, every cable channel for $59.99 a month with Q Broadcast, not the kook Q. I'm talking about CUE. CUE, Q Broadcast. Go to therightside.myqbroadcast.com. therightside.myqbroadcast.com and get signed up today. We're in this together, folks. Believe it. For the Republic. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Friday to all of you. Hope that you're getting ready for a good weekend. And I'm arming you with the information that you'll need as you head into the weekend, as you meet with your radical liberal friends or members of your family. Armed now with the countermeasures necessary to promote truth, diligence, and the American exceptionalism that we have come to know and love. So yes, a lot of misrepresentation from the radical liberal left to try to deconstruct what the founders have left us. And it's led to really this kind of radical liberal kook mob that want to draft policies that suppress rather than to protect our faith, which is absolutely flipping Jefferson's original intent. So the founders, let's be clear, the founders envisioned a Christian principled society, not a theocracy, I'm not saying that, but a moral compass based in faith. We all know that John Adams said that this republic, this Constitution, is designed for a moral and religious people, and it won't survive with anything less than that. And again, to be clear, that's why the radical liberal movement wants to change us and transform us away from that intent, because they want to fundamentally transform America. Obama said it himself. We have to keep that in mind. This is all part of their plan. And I have a clip. Senator Tim Kaine, he puts this in words, in his own words, and he summarizes exactly what the radical liberal movement in this country is about. And we'd better take note, and we'd better make sure that we understand this is not a flippant comment that's made just off the cuff at a hearing in the Senate. It is a real proclamation about what the radical liberal movement intends for this republic. So, Fish, if you're there and if you've got that clip from Senator Kaine and then the response, the brilliant response that Senator Ted Cruz gives, I'd appreciate that.
The notion that rights don't come from laws and don't come from the government, but come from the creator, that's what the Iranian government believes. So the statement that our rights do not come from our laws or our governments is extremely troubling.
So Senator Kaine said in this hearing that he found it a radical and dangerous notion that you would say our rights came from God and not from government. I just walked into the hearing as he was saying that, and I almost fell out of my chair. Because that radical and dangerous notion, in his words, is literally the founding principle upon which the United States of America was created. And if you do not believe me, and you made reference to this, Mr. Barnes, then you can believe perhaps the most prominent Virginian to ever serve, Thomas Jefferson, who wrote in the Declaration of Independence, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator, not by government, not by the Democratic National Committee, but by God."
That is shocking. And Ted Cruz is awesome. What Tim Kaine said, ladies and gentlemen, it's a brilliant example of what I've been trying to tell you, that our rights come from government. That's what he's saying. They don't come from God. It is shocking. I can't believe that he said it. I know that they believe that, but to have one of their members say that out loud so that we have it on record is really quite shocking to me. But we've got it, and that's what they mean. And so I'm telling you, this is exactly it. His quote that rights come from laws, not from God, that is exposing quite plainly and simply the atheism of the radical liberal movement in this country. It completely takes the mask off what their real intents really are. Republicans and the conservative movement in this country, although not perfect, nothing can be perfect left in the hands of man. But at least the Republican conservative movement aspires and strives to portray, to describe, to meet, and to talk about, and to express the divine providence of God. At least we try to recognize that in our behavior in government and the laws and the policies in which we put forth, that we are acting on behalf of that divine providence. We are seeking it out. We are seeking the wisdom of divine providence. At least we try to do that when we hold life as sacred. Opportunity and the American dream comes to us from rights handed to us from God. That's the Republican conservative movement lifting souls up through those beliefs, through things like the dignity of the work that we do in this republic. And the Democrats will gaslight and project on us at every opportunity. The Democrat radical liberal movement has, since the dawn of the last century, wanted to enslave people with entitlements. And they do that because it breeds dependence. You must be dependent upon the state. If we extend the intent of the founding fathers, and if we honor the Mayflower Compact, covenanting under God, or this civil body politic that we engage upon in our government, this means that we're trying to reclaim and honor that which heaven has given us. And we try to do that to the best of our ability. You will find no perfection within the conservative Republican movement as led by man. But I can tell you this, there is no way that a godly people can follow the politics, the platform, and the policies that are put forth by the Communist Socialist, formerly known as Democrat Party. No way. They are completely incompatible with a Christian mindset. American exceptionalism isn't a boast. It is a blessing. Divine providence guiding our prosperity through faith and through effort. Nothing is provided for free. And only the Republican conservative movement fully attempts to embody that by championing things like self-reliance, while Democrats exile God, peddling handouts that keep people enslaved. And that's their intent. That's their will for us. Keynes' remark, right, everything that we have comes from government, according to the liberals, not God, not the creator, like the Iranians, right? That what he's saying and what they attempt to do, reading between the lines, they're attempting to strip our soul of the context of divine providence, dismissing Christian conservatism as an extremist perspective. And the leftist group try to purge providence from us. Republicans foster opportunity, tax cuts, boosting jobs, lifting you up through work, and building human dignity that way. You do not receive nor anywhere come close to achieving human dignity if you're entitled to sit on the porch and do nothing. I'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. Getting worked up. Hope you are too. Stay with me. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
I want to tell you about the good people over at EMP Shield. Electromagnetic pulse, ladies and gentlemen. It can fry your home electrical system or your vehicle's electrical system. But if you attach one of these, now this is for your breaker box at home. There's a smaller version that goes on your battery of your car, your vehicle, that will prevent it from being fried in the event of an electromagnetic pulse. Because as you know, thanks to Administrator Biden, many people coming across the border now who don't exactly have the best of intentions. Protect yourself. EMPshield.com. Get huge discounts over there if you use the promo code Doug.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. The warden's throwing some parties, we hope, for some of these people that we're talking about. Little jailhouse rock, courtesy of the Trump Department of Justice, coming our way, we hope, ladies and gentlemen, as we guide ourselves into the weekend. The Republicans fostering opportunity while the Democrats continually endeavor to strip us away from the divine intent of God. And reminding you that conservative capitalist ideals, philosophies, and approaches to business and life make for happier people. The conservative Christian mindset. Imagine, especially when you look just from a look at your own life, right? The ability that conservatives have to see adversity, challenge, and tragedy provide blessings that may remain unborn for a time, but blessings that are possible nonetheless. Liberals don't think that way. Democrats' policies trap 20 million people in poverty every year. That's per our own census data. Without faith, we become Europe. Stagnant growth, And with it, we become exceptional. Have you noticed that? Have you noticed that's the reason why if you put a group of 10 people in a lineup and, the people lining these groups up, okay, there's 10 people, 3 of them are liberal, 7 of them are conservative. Most of us, I would bet you, I know I can, and I would bet most of you could tell who are the liberals, who are the 3 liberals in this group of 10. We can tell. My point is we can tell by looking at liberals that they're not always happy. There's something about their aura. There's something about them. And it's because they don't have this kind of faith. They don't have this kind of perspective. Now, there are people who are liberal who go to church and they claim and they say, "Oh, Ed Billings, you're full of it." That's an extremist perception. I have a lot of friends. We all have our own faith traditions, right? Some of you are Episcopalian, some of you are Pentecostal, some of you are Baptist, some of you are Lutheran, some of you are Catholic, some of you are Jewish, all right? We all have our own faith traditions. In my faith tradition within the Catholic Church, a church that for 2,000 years has stood in truth and has not really wavered from truth with regards to life, for example, we believe life is, well, at least we're supposed to, the unborn human life within a mother's womb, but yet I can tell you that there are liberal people who go to mass, who go to church, who otherwise live a life that most would consider moral, productive lives. I get it. But they belong to the communist-socialist, formerly known as Democrat Party. And my contention is that, yes, you're a good person, but you have to draw the line at what the Democrat Party platform stands for. The murdering and the butchering of babies. And that's just one example. You have to draw, well, but Doug, the Republican Party is not in. Look at that President Trump. And then when they get into that, they start talking about Trump's personality. They don't give you any substantive reasons. They might say a few policy things that they don't agree with the Republican. But we need to take care of these immigrants. Okay, they bring that up. But listen, they also forget that we're also a country of laws and order. So my point is, I don't want to get into a debate about religion, but I'm saying people of faith need to realize that my perspective is a person of faith. I myself can't wrap my head around how a person of faith can choose to associate with the Democratic Party in things like what Tim Kaine just said to us in the last segment of the show, where he said, the idea that you people believe that we get our rights from God, well, that's the same thing the Iranians believe. And that our rights don't come from government and the law. See, folks, that's a sickness and that's crazy. And we thank goodness we're in the great reawakening. But there is good news, and we hear all of the time that religious inclination in this country is on the decline, church attendance on the decline, and so forth. Do you know, it's too early to tell, obviously, if this is a permanent trend, but since the assassination of Charlie Kirk across this country, church attendance is actually up 10%. In red states, okay, I've got to clarify, in conservative states, church attendance up 10%. I'll take it. And when you extend our principles and our policies and our platform to economic freedom, it unleashes innovation. With Republican policies, we spark growth, entrepreneurship. We spark capitalism. We unlock and unpack what your potential could be without the fetters of government. That's why we've always and traditionally have believed in small government, staying out of the way, where the radical Democrat perspective is, no, big government must be big, and you must be dependent upon it. American exceptionalism thrives on Christian roots, and the founders crafted a nation where faith informs our freedom, not dictate it. And that's unique in the world, in history. This is divine design. Republicans reviving it while Democrats are denying it. The last paragraph, ladies and gentlemen, of our Constitution, it's done in convention by unanimous consent of the states present. the 17th day of September in the year of our Lord, 1787, and the independence of the United States of America, the 12th in witness thereof, we have hereto subscribed our names. That's the Constitution. The states, we realize, of course, that the states came together to proclaim this. And they invoke the Lord in prayer. The Constitution, in many ways, especially its closing paragraphs, is a prayer. It's a temporal anchor. It's a humble nod to God. Sovereignty, please, over our work here. Please have sovereignty over. Grant us your wisdom and your providence. The founders' invocation of blessing, it's ignored, of course, by liberals and secularists all the time, like Tim Kaine. It's America's covenant, blending the independence with divine timing, where heaven and earth come together in a sense of timing that has never been seen before or since. And it's a call for providence that the Republican Party echoes and that the radical liberal movement in America tries to erase. Republicans honor this with school prayer. Democrats try to banish it, breeding in effect a moral vacuum that has been the cause of so many of our problems in this country with regards to the lack of religious attitude and morality within this republic. If you extend a moral framework for a people, for a government, it restores things like societal ethics. It reduces the divisiveness that we've seen. It's precisely because of the radical left's attempt to dismiss religion from our society that we have become so divided. There was a time not long ago when I was a kid, yes, believe it or not long ago when I was a kid, when I voted for President Reagan for his first and his second term. He and Tip O'Neill, who was at the time the Speaker of the House, a Democrat, could argue like crazy in the news and on television about policies and procedures. But at the end of the day, by gosh, they could go to the pub and have a beer. And they could laugh and talk and be friends and friendly. Divisiveness is the key, one of the keys of the radical liberal agenda to fundamentally transform America. I am not condemning any liberal as a person. I'm trying to help the liberal come to the light, to come to the right side, to come in off the ledge of Kookville and come back into the room of reality and faith and the providence that was promised to us by God and our founders. It's renewal. Polls are now showing, ladies and gentlemen, that 70% of people want faith in public life. Imagine that. It's renewal. It's this great reawakening that I keep on talking to you about. God's providence is being reclaimed, and Trump has a huge part in this. Can you imagine a man like Trump called for a time such as this? Not a man who's overtly religious, not a man who jokes, and he was joking, by the way, when he said, I don't know if I'm going to make it to heaven. You know that interview on Air Force One when he was talking with Peter Doocy? Watch that clip again. In fact, find me on social media on X or Facebook or wherever. I made a comment about that. He said, I'm going to get a little, what did he say? His exact words, I'm going to get a little cute here. And then he went off on that. I don't know if I'm going to get to it. It's Trump speak for I'm going to give you some sarcasm. I'm going to give you a little light humor here. And that's what he doesn't believe that he's not going to heaven. But my point is, a man like that, who probably had no intention when he came down that golden escalator, that he was going to be the beginning of the reclamation of our search for and implementation of divine providence in this republic, had no intent, I'm sure, when he came down that golden escalator. But look at what he's been doing. There's obviously a faith renewal going on, a reclamation, as I said, a reclaiming of our divine providence. And we've got to read those documents. We are all paying more attention to the founding documents. The founding documents, aside from setting that we know rights come from God, is really the first time in the history of the world of mankind that men have taken and formed a prayer upon which they will build a government. In proper perspective and terms, especially, as I said, in the last couple of paragraphs of our founding document, the Declaration of Independence, it is a prayer to the divine creator. And so when Tim Kaine comes out and says nonsense and reveals the radical left agenda, we need to take note, and we need to be absolutely steadfast in our pursuit of how we recover the country away from that. And again, it goes back to you and to me. What are you doing to engage in determined patriotism? Doing the hard work of reclaiming and keeping this republic as it was intended by God himself and the intent of the founders. This really is our edge. It's a divine edge that we have. And we, through hard work, can boost the rewards that we see in this country, not just for individuals, but for the nation in general. Democratic policies, as I say again and again, enslave us with handouts. And when you look at the angles there, prosperity flowing from Providence, not government programs. When's the last time you saw human dignity and progress and real prosperity flow out of a food program set forth by the government? Now, there will always be poor and less fortunate people, and we need to tend to them. Not saying anything different, and certainly not denying that. But what I'm asking is, when's the last time you saw real prosperity be born from a government program? Real prosperity begins when we embrace the divine providence of God and the intent of the founding fathers, and then we are free to become the best version of ourselves. Agree? Amen? Yes. All right, another break, and then we'll wrap up the show for today and head into the weekend, but stay with me. I'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Well, I've got a deal for you, folks. You want to cut the cable cord once and for all? You spending what, 120, 150 or more a month on cable? What if I told you I can get you every cable channel out there, every sports team that you want to follow, the NFL channel, the Major League Baseball channels, all of them, every network channel, every cable channel for $59.99 a month with Q Broadcast, not the kook Q. I'm talking about CUE. CUE, Q Broadcast. Go to therightside.myqbroadcast.com. therightside.myqbroadcast.com and get signed up today. We're in this together, folks. Believe it. For the Republic. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
There we are, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. Thank you, Fish. The Right Side with Doug Billings upon you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being with us as we head into the final segment of the program today, hopefully dispensing some hope here for the weekend. A lot of good news. Our country, this reawakening is real and it's palpable. You can see it, feel it, almost taste it out there, and it's exciting. America back, and out of the nightmare that was cast upon us by Administrator Biden and Vice Pretender Harris, most certainly. And that Tim Kaine clip that Fish played for you, saying that if we believe that our rights come from God, that's what Iranians do. Somehow saying that we're crazy and that we're kooks. And what he's really doing in his God denial of that clip that we heard is exposing the atheism that is the liberal movement in America. It exposes it. Simple. And more horrible, I think, is that what Tim Kaine said really implies that people of faith are the enemy in the minds of the liberal. And Carolyn Levitt kind of went viral yesterday because I don't have this clip, but she was saying that the base of the radical liberal movement in this country is comprised of these kinds of people: criminal, atheist, non-believers, anti-American, And she's right. The left melted down, and they always do when they're called out with truth and logic. She's absolutely right. I've been saying it for 5 years. This is what they are. Why else? What other conclusions can we draw when we see the radical liberal movement in this country refuse to prosecute criminals and instead put them back on the street where they can murder people, or open the border where hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who don't really like us come in and try to do us harm? There's no other conclusion. What about their trans agenda, the myth that is transgenderism? Well, in order for these people to be happy, we have to let them mutilate themselves. Well, that's what they're saying. It's horrible. It's horrific. It's medieval, barbaric. And yet those are the conversations that we're having with the radical liberal movement in America. We, on the other hand, there's a moral guide that comes to us from conservatism based in our faith. And it's exactly what Thomas Jefferson and the rest of the founding fathers, all 56 of them, wanted for this republic. A moral guide and a prayer, and they wrote it in the form of our Constitution. And that seals it. No dignity was ever given anybody by a handout, by a freebie. Dignity comes from the work that we do. And that, by the way, is called capitalism. Look, that offers us, can you imagine the desperation? And that's probably why we can tell the difference in that lineup of the conservatives and the liberals, the desperation they feel, which adds to their sadness, which adds to the burden that they bear. Obviously, we can see it. Our side offers abundant life and opportunity because of the very providence that we try to establish is gifted us from God himself. We embrace the dignity of work. We try to teach that to our children. We try to teach it to the people that we know, our neighbors. And the left continually tries to tear it down. The Democrat Party is most certainly the party of slavery, and they still are. Back in the day, slavery in chains. Today, slavery through entitlements. But the Constitution, the divine providence, the intent of the founding fathers, this is what binds us up as one nation under God. And this has all been fostering a 22% rise in civic participation. That means you guys getting involved in your local communities. 27% rise over the last quarter in faith-based arenas, endeavors. And that may have a lot to do with Charlie Kirk, to be honest with you. But it also has a lot to do with the conservative approach that we've seen, and especially the dichotomy between, upon examination, what we see from the radical left as compared to the conservative side in this country. That's causing John and Jane Doe on the streets of America, who think that they're still a Democrat because they still identify the Democrat Party with people like Bill Clinton or John F. Kennedy. The Democrat Party of those two gentlemen doesn't exist. And that's what's causing John and Jane Doe on the streets of Branson, Missouri, to wake up and say, this is not at all, by the way, what I think this country, it's not what I intend. I think it's not what the founders intended. And so multiple millions of John and Jane Does across this country have woken up, and they're getting involved. Thank you. Finally, now, folks, we have a lot of work to do, but this is how we reclaim the republic. A lot of the comments online and so forth about Pence and about the theft of an American presidential election, about the justice that we're seeing coming forth now in this republic. These things have been going on since the republic was born. I mean, there has been cheating, there have been crimes, there have been, all of this. Justice is not always fast, and we see that and we know it. The good news is we're awake, and there's more people waking up every day. We don't take the foot off the pedal. We push the pedal faster. We get involved. We try to convince other people to get involved, and we prove to them by virtue of what we know and see to be true that the radical left movement in this country is designed and intended to provide nothing but purposeful chaos and crisis. Look at the cities and the states that they're in charge of, folks. Look at it: Portland, Seattle, Chicago, and look at the things these kook governors, the Democrat, communist, socialist governors are saying. And look at what they've convinced members of the media to say. Oh, this is just mostly a peaceful demonstration. as it becomes murder, mayhem, arson, looting, and anarchy. We see the difference, and we know. And so there's great hope for us that America is back. The divine providence in the hand of God himself is stirring among us, and we can see it. We can see evidence of this in the things that are happening. The Middle East is another example. We've talked about it this hour and ad nauseum this week, but it's a real miracle. It's a real miracle born out of adversity, challenge, and tragedy. And those are the items that more often than not lead us to blessing. In fact, I'll say they always lead us to blessing with the proper perspective. That's right. Every challenge, every tragedy, every adversity always leads us to blessings. And you, my friends, you have a pack of blessings on your back. And I want you to believe that. No matter what you're going through in your life, or no matter what you think about America right now, a pack of blessings is on our backs. Have a great weekend, ladies and gentlemen. Stay right here on the Real Talk Radio Network. There's a great deal of hope here. Share it. Enjoy it. I'll be back next week with you, Monday through Friday, right here. God bless you. We're in this together, ladies and gentlemen. Believe it. For the Republic. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
And do you become members of the most intellectually mature audience in all of Radioland? Well, I've got a deal for you, folks. You want to cut the cable cord once and for all? You spending what, $120, $150 or more a month on cable? What if I told you I can get you every cable channel out there, every sports team that you want to follow, the NFL channel, the Major League Baseball channels, all of them, every network channel, every cable channel for $59.99 a month with Q Broadcast, not the kook Q. I'm talking about CUE. CUE, Q Broadcast. Go to therightside.myqbroadcast.com. therightside.myqbroadcast.com and get signed up today. We're in this together, folks. Believe it. For the Republic. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.